A definition of research and its importance. Research is a process of steps used to collect and analyze information to increase our understanding of a topic or issue. At a general level, research consists of 3 steps. 1. Pose a question. 2. Collect data to answer the question. 3. Present an answer to the question. This should be a familiar process. You engage in solving problems every day, and you start with a question, collect some information, and then form an answer. Although there are a few more steps in research than these 3, this is the overall framework for research. When you examine a published study, or conduct your own study, you will find these 3 parts as the core elements. Not all educators have an understanding and appreciation of research. For some, research may seem like something that is important only for faculty members in colleges and universities. Although it is true that college and university faculty members value and conduct research, personnel in other educational settings also read and use research, such as school psychologists, principals, school board members, adult educators, college administrators, and graduate students. Research is important for 3 reasons. For Part 1, an introduction to educational research. Research adds to our knowledge. Educators strive for continual improvement. This requires addressing problems or issues and searching for potential solutions. Adding to knowledge means that educators undertake research to contribute to existing information about issues. We are all aware of pressing educational issues being debated today, such as the integration of AIDS education into the school curriculum. Research plays a vital role in addressing these issues. Through research, we develop results that help to answer questions, and as we accumulate these results, we gain a deeper understanding of the problems. In this way, researchers are much like bricklayers who build a wall brick by brick, continually adding to the wall, and, in the process, create a stronger structure. How can research specify add to the knowledge base and existing literature? A research report might provide a study that has not been conducted and thereby void in existing knowledge. It can also provide additional results to confi-RM or DISCON. Phi-RM results of prior studies. It can help add to the literature about practices that work or advance better practices that educators might try in their educational setting. It can provide information about people and places that have not been previously studied. Suppose that you decide to research how elementary school children learn social skills. If you study how children develop social skills, and past research has not examined this topic, your research study addresses a gap in knowledge. If your study explores how African American children use social skills on their way home from school, your study might replicate past studies, but would test results with new participants at a different research site. If your study examines how children use social skills when at play, not on the school grounds, but on the way home from school, the study would contribute to knowledge by expanding our understanding of the topic. If your study examines female children on the way home from school, your study would add female voices seldom heard in the research. If your study has implications for how to teach social skills to students, it has practical value. Research improves practice. Research is also important because it suggests improvements for practice. Armed with research results, teachers and other educators become more effective professionals. This effectiveness translates into better learning for kids. For instance, through research, personnel involved in teacher education programs in schools of education know much more about training teachers today than they did 20 years ago. Zeichner, 1999, summarized the impact of research on teacher training during this period. See Table 1.1. Teacher trainers today know about the academic capabilities of students, the characteristics of good teacher training programs, the recurring practices in teacher training programs, the need to challenge student beliefs and worldviews, and the tensions teacher educators face within their institutions. But before these research results can impact teacher training or any other aspect of education, individuals in educational settings need to be aware of results from investigations, to know how to read research studies, to locate useful conclusions from them, and to apply the findings to their own unique situations. Educators using research may be teachers in preschool through grade 12, superintendents in school district OFFICES, school psychologists working with children with behavioral problems, or adult educators who teach English as a second language. Research may help these individuals improve their practices on the job. Research offers practicing educators new ideas to consider as they go about their jobs. From reading research studies, educators can learn about new practices that have been. Chapter 1: The process of conducting research using quantitative and qualitative approaches. 5. Tried in other settings or situations. For example, the adult educator working with immigrants may find that small group interaction that focuses on using cultural objects from the various homelands may increase the rate at which immigrants learn the English language. Research also helps practitioners evaluate approaches that they hope will work with individuals in educational settings. This process involves sifting through research to determine which results will be most useful. This process is demonstrated in Figure 1.1, which focuses on 3 steps that a classroom teacher might use. Connolly, Dokacs, and Quinlan, 1980. As shown in Figure 1.1, a teacher first decides what needs to be implemented in the classroom, then examines alternative lines of research, and finally decides which line of research might help accomplish what needs to be done. For example, a reading teacher decides to incorporate more information about cultural perspectives into the classroom. Research suggests that this may be done with classroom interactions by inviting speakers to the room, line A, or by having the children consider and think, cognitively, about different cultural perspectives by talking with individuals at a local cultural center, line B. It may also be accomplished by having the children inquire into cultural messages embedded within advertisements, line C, or identify the cultural subject matter of speeches of famous Americans, line D. A line of research is then chosen that helps the teacher to accomplish classroom goals. This teacher might be Maria, our teacher conducting research on weapon possession in schools and its potential for violence. Maria hopes to present options for dealing with this issue to her committee and needs to identify useful research lines and consider approaches taken by other schools. Table 1.1. Zeichner's, 1999, Summary of Major Research Results in Teacher Education. Research conducted. What researchers have learned. Surveys about students in teacher education programs from academic, social class, racial, ethnic, and gender characteristics of both teacher educators and their students. The research has challenged the misconception that students who go into teaching are academically inferior to those who go into other fields. Despite changing U.S. demographics, teacher education programs admit mostly students who are white, monolingual English speakers. See case studies of individual teacher education programs. Successful teacher education programs have a coherent vision of good teaching and close links to local schools. Researchers need to spend time living in teacher education programs to understand them. Conceptual and historical research on teacher education programs. Teacher education programs differ in their approaches, such as the importance of disciplinary knowledge versus students' learning versus critiquing societal inequalities in schooling practices. Programs throughout the 20th century have emphasized recurring practices, such as performance-based teacher education. Studies of learning to teach in different settings. It is difficult to change the tacit beliefs, understandings, and worldviews that students bring to teacher education programs. The impact of a program on students can be increased through cohort groups, portfolio development, case studies, and narratives in which they examine their beliefs. Nature and impact of teacher education activities and self-studies. Despite the sometimes unfavorable structural conditions of teacher educators' work, their voices are being heard. Teachers in these self-studies describe the tensions and contradictions involved in being a teacher educator. 6 Part 1 An Introduction to Educational Research. Figure 1.1. Lines of research and your decision-making. Source: adapted from Connolly, Dokacs, and Quinian, 1980. Decide what you want to do in your classroom, Example, incorporate more information about cultural perspectives in the classroom. Step 2. Step 1. Step 3. Research lines. A. Advantages of invited speakers. B. Immersion in cultural settings. C. Sensitivity to cultural messages. D. Findings. A. Findings. B. Findings. C. Findings. D. Study specific cultural words, as found in speeches. Find out what research has to say. Decide which of the lines of research might help you do the things you want to do in your classroom. At a broader level, research helps the practicing educator build connections with other educators who are trying out similar ideas in different locations. Special education teachers, for example, may establish connections at research conferences where individuals report on topics of mutual interest, such as using small group strategies for discipline management in classrooms. Research informs policy debates. In addition to helping educators become better practitioners, research also provides information to policymakers when they research and debate educational topics. Policymakers may range from federal government employees and state workers to local school board members and administrators, and they discuss and take positions on educational issues important to constituencies. For these individuals, research offers results that can help them weigh various perspectives. When policymakers read research on issues, they are informed about current debates and stances taken by other public officials. To be useful, research needs to have clear results, be summarized in a concise fashion, and include data-based evidence. For example, research useful to policymakers might summarize the alternatives on welfare and its effect on children's schooling among lower-income families' school choice, and the arguments proposed by opponents and proponents. Several problems with research today. Despite the importance of research, we need to realistically evaluate its contributions. Sometimes the results show contradictory or vague findings. An education aid to the Chapter 1. The process of conducting research using quantitative and qualitative approaches. 7. Education and Labor Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives for 27 years expressed this confusion. I read through every single evaluation, looking for a hard sentence, a declarative sentence, something that I could put into the legislation, and there were very few. Viadero, 1999, p. 36. Not only are policymakers looking for a clear declarative sentence, many readers of educational research search for some evidence that makes a direct statement about an educational issue. On balance, however, research accumulates slowly, and what may seem contradictory comes together to make sense in time. Based on the information known, for example, it took more than 4 years to identify the most rudimentary factors about how chairpersons help faculty become better researchers. Creswell, Wheeler, Seagren, Egley, and Bayer, 1990. Another problem with research is the issue of questionable data. The author of a particular research report may not have gathered information from people who are able to understand and address the problem. The number of participants may also be dismally low, which can cause problems in drawing appropriate statistical conclusions. The survey used in a study may contain questions that are ambiguous and vague. At a technical level, the researcher may have chosen an inappropriate statistic for analyzing the data. Just because research is published in a well-known journal does not automatically make it good research. To these issues we could add unclear statements about the intent of the study, the lack of full disclosure of data collection procedures, or inarticulate statements of the research problem that drives the inquiry. Research has limits, and you need